Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trail Mix, where the nuts might be a little stale, but the company is always fresh.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, September 3rd, and a big day in the Epstein story. I'm Craig Crawford, host of Trail Mix, retired journalist doing nothing but the truth for Social Security checks. And I want to take some time. It's about a half hour before the Epstein survivors do a press conference on Capitol Hill. And I wanted to take a little time to set all this up. We've got coming up, we're going live to that testimony in a half an hour. We've got a former federal prosecutor we've had on here before to talk about some of the ins and outs. We really get into the weeds of the legal stuff. And there's an interesting case ongoing with an Epstein victim who's trying to get his sweetheart deal overturned, even though he's dead, which is why the appeals courts haven't been real friendly to her. But that case is ongoing in the 11th Circuit in Atlanta. The federal circuit in Atlanta is just had hearings last month on it. She's trying to overturn the sweetheart deal that Epstein got, and that would unveil a lot of records in that case that we haven't heard about. What all went into that? And one of the things we're going to talk to our former federal prosecutor about on that score is a kind of an amazing thing I only recently learned about, that when Epstein got his deal to plea down to solicitation instead of rape, what that implied was that the minor girls he victimized were prostitutes. And that's one big argument against that plea deal, that Mr. Acosta, the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney actually in Miami who did that way back when, well, guess what? He ultimately got a job on Trump's cabinet. And that's something we've explored in the past, probably get into again. The prosecutor who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal ended up with a spot on Donald Trump's first cabinet, Secretary of Labor. When it all came out, his role in that deal with Epstein, he resigned from the cabinet. That's just one piece of it all. There are so many, but let's start with the news. Last night, the House Oversight Committee released a whole bunch of documents DOJ had given them. This could be fake transparency. A lot of the documents were already in the public. We'd already seen. There was some new stuff though, and Trump's name shows up. Here's where Trump's name shows up in the Epstein flight logs that were released last night by the House Oversight Committee. This was new. Among the 33,000 pages released last night, fewer than 1,000 pages were newly disclosed information. But specifically, the new stuff was flight logs from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, tracking Epstein's jet years and years ago. These logs confirm that Donald Trump appears multiple times as a passenger on Epstein's private plane. Now, we knew some of this, but we got more detail now, mainly in the 1990s, flying between Palm Beach, New York, and D.C. In addition, Trump's name is listed in Epstein's partially redacted black book, so-called, his contact book. Now, this is not the client list that so many have talked about. It's just his regular contact book, like any of us have, a list of our contacts. But Trump's in there. You know what this reestablishes, is it Trump's name resurfaces in these newly released documents and the flight logs and the contact book. It just reinforces what we did know. It's just more detail on the social relationship that he did have with Trump, which he hasn't necessarily denied. But we're just seeing how close they were. You know, Trump's former casino manager in Atlantic City has said that they weren't just casual friends. He called them best friends. And we're seeing plenty of records now in the black and white still coming out, even as of last night, further establishing that, which makes it, the question is, what else is in these documents that Trump is so determined to keep hidden? So anyway, we're going live with the survivor's testimony in about 20 minutes now. And what is this all about? I think at this point, I'll go ahead and pop on over to a little video I made that's just 48 seconds long on why Epstein matters. Why the Epstein story matters in 30 seconds. The FBI has a massive file on Jeffrey Epstein's global sex trafficking ring. The Department of Justice has it. They've kept it locked. Trump promised to release it. Never did. His own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, warned him he is in those records. And he wasn't shy about their friendship. In 2002, Trump told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. He likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many are on the younger side." So ask yourself, what's in those files? And why is Trump so afraid for you to see them? Okay, that was 40 seconds. Well, actually, it was 48 seconds, but and here we are. We still don't have these questions answered. Why Trump's fighting so hard to keep all this out? I mean, this is about transparency, accountability, a Congress under pressure, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein on Capitol Hill in 15 or 20 minutes, demanding full transparency. They've got bipartisan backup. There are two representatives, one Republican, Massey, and another Democrat, Khanna, pressing their bill to force the Justice Department to hand over everything. Now, that's the other thing going on this week, is big fight, big debate within the House Republicans on whether to release or to direct the DOJ, Department of Justice, to release more records. And Trump and his supporters, starting with the Speaker of the House, Johnson, are opposing that. Survivors say this drip approach is draining. It's politicizing their tragedy, their pain. We've seen some fresh emotion inside Congress. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina left a closed door session in tears yesterday after hearing survivor testimony. There's new outrage over the Justice Department dropping Ghislaine Maxwell's interview transcripts. Families say that gives her a platform to rewrite history. And that brings us to Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was Epstein's associate. She's in jail. She's serving a 20-year sentence. She met with Trump's personal lawyer, who's now an official at DOJ, not too long ago. And just a few days after that, she got moved from a higher security, more uncomfortable prison to a very comfortable, what they call club fed prison in Texas. Seemed like she was rewarded for something. Then they released the transcripts of what she said in that interview. And in that interview, she said that she never saw Trump do anything inappropriate. Now, someone convicted of sex trafficker might have a different definition of inappropriate to the rest of us. But that leads us to, let's talk about why Ghislaine Maxwell matters. Why Ghislaine Maxwell matters in 48 seconds. She knows names, dates, and deals, the same secrets buried in the FBI's locked Jeffrey Epstein file, a file Trump promised to release until his own Attorney General warned he's in it. She's serving 20 years for helping Jeffrey Epstein run his global sex trafficking network. Maxwell is one of the few people alive who could confirm exactly who was involved, how it worked, and who it protected. As one viewer of Trail Mix put it, he's going to pardon her. He's just going about it slowly and in phases so his cult has enough time to do the mental gymnastics required to be okay with it. And that's why Maxwell still matters. We're not hearing as much about Maxwell this week because so much of the focus is back on the records that are trickling out about Epstein and and the demand for more records, but more importantly, the victims. Although I imagine these victims, once we start hearing from her, are going to have a lot to say about Maxwell. And to that point, this morning, one of the victims did an interview on Good Morning America, her first one, I believe. And so on this day when we're going to start hearing from victims, Good Morning America got an interview that I believe is the first today we've gotten on that, and we're going to put that up here. I think she is going to be in the press conference later today, but I'm not entirely sure about that. And here's that interview. I'll crank that up.
Good morning again, George. Her statements to the FBI are credited with helping to put Jeffrey Epstein behind bars. Marina Lacerda details years of abuse at the hands of Epstein, starting right after she turned 14. Now 37, she talks about her ongoing trauma and why she is imploring lawmakers to make all the Epstein files public. Until now, Marina Lacerda was known publicly only as minor victim number 1 in 2019 court documents. But now she's speaking out for the first time about her experience at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Her cooperation with the FBI was key to putting the sex offender behind bars. She says she was just 14 years old and living in a broken home in New York City when a friend brought her to meet Epstein to give him a massage.
I think with Jeffrey Epstein, it starts somewhere, but then it ends with either you having sex with him, whether you like it or not.
She became a part of a network of young girls in Astoria, Queens, recruited to be with Epstein. Similar to what prosecutors say he did in Palm Beach, Florida.
When he has somebody new in his life, he likes to see them a lot. So I went there a whole bunch of times, and, you know, it led to, unfortunately, he forced me to have sex with him, basically.
Lacerda says she was paid thousands of dollars and that as a young immigrant from Brazil, she says she believed being associated with a financier could lead to better opportunities.
It never happened, obviously, you know, because it came to a point when I was 16 and a half or 17. He didn't want me anymore. He was just like, you're too old.
He said that?
He's like, you're too old. I don't want you anymore.
Epstein was arrested in 2019 and charged with conspiracy and child sex trafficking, but died by suicide a month later while in custody awaiting trial. To your knowledge, you never came across other adults who may have thought, it's really strange that there's this 14-year-old girl here.
We had the secretary, right, that would give me money if I needed. At times, I would pass by his office. His driver, or I guess his bodyguard, I don't know who he was, he delivered furniture to the house. The maids sometimes would be there. I would be hanging out in the kitchen. In 2008, during the FBI's first investigation of Epstein, agents arrived at her door. I was living with, you know, roommates that were like around my age, 17, 18 at the time. And I was like, well, I have to call Jeffrey. What am I going to do? Lacerda says that she called Epstein, who hired an attorney for her, and she never heard anything further about the case. It was in 2019 that the FBI spoke to Lacerda again, and this time her statements to the FBI helped them build a case against Epstein. Do you feel some relief, some pride that there was this direct line in ultimately him getting arrested? I would have felt much better today speaking if I was able to speak in 2008. If they would have gave me the chance to speak, these women would not have been through this. Now a mother, Lacerda says in the days before traveling to Capitol Hill, she pushed herself to share her story with her own daughter, hoping to set an example for the next generation. I did tell her, and that was tough. But she's so little and so naive. She's like, you know, she's like, Mom, you're such a badass. Epstein rages on Capitol Hill, Lacerda is hoping transparency can help her remember the details she's forgotten and finally begin to recover from the trauma.
What would you like Congress to do?
To give all the victims transparency to what happened and release these files. It's also not only for the victims, but for the American people.
Several lawmakers are holding a press conference later today with multiple Epstein survivors, some of whom have never spoken publicly before. Speaker Johnson says the GOP is committed to transparency, which is exactly what Lacerda says she wants. We'll have more of her heartbreaking story tonight on ABC News Live Prime at 7 p.m. Eastern, guys.
All right, Lindsay, our thanks to you.
Victims of Jeffrey Epstein are in Washington, D.C. They have met with the Speaker of the House. They are pushed to get the Jeffrey Epstein files released. What the House Speaker is now saying tonight, and will there be a vote to release the files? Here's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, as Congress returns to Washington, their first order of business, the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. For more than 2 hours, women who say they were victimized by Epstein meeting behind closed doors with lawmakers, including Speaker Mike Johnson.
There were tears in the room. There was outrage. It was both, I would describe it as heartbreaking and infuriating that justice has been delayed so long.
But Johnson still refuses to let the House vote to compel the Justice Department to release the full Epstein files. His fellow Republican, Congressman Thomas Massey, tells me Johnson is under pressure from President Trump and that Trump just wants this to go away.
He thinks he can just make this go away by telling people there's nothing here. The problem is this is bigger than him, and he can't make it go away by saying there's nothing here.
Late today, I pressed the Speaker.
There are some in your own party, Thomas Massey is one of them, who have said that by delaying a vote, resisting a floor vote on the Epstein documents, that you are protecting the president. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that's obvious nonsense.
Bottom line, David, Speaker Johnson tonight is still blocking a vote on any full release of the Epstein files, citing victim privacy. He's instead pointing to an ongoing House Oversight Committee investigation, which late tonight, David, released more than 30,000 pages of Epstein records that it had subpoenaed from the Department of Justice. But most David.
Victims of Jeffrey Epstein are in Washington, D.C. They have met with the Speaker of the House. They are pushed to get the Jeffrey Epstein files released. What the House Speaker is now saying tonight, and will there be a vote to release the files? Here's Jay O'Brien.
Tonight, as Congress returns to Washington, their first order of business, the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. For more than 2 hours, women who say they were victimized by Epstein meeting behind closed doors with lawmakers, including Speaker Mike Johnson.
There were tears in the room. There was outrage. It was both.
Yeah, that's the setup. Now we've got some folks over here on the Hill. They're starting to get cranked up for the Epstein survivor testimony at the Capitol Hill press conference that's coming up. And I'm going to put this up now. I'm trying to see who this is talking, but I haven't seen that yet. I guess I've got several speakers. They're doing this on Capitol Hill steps. Not the most cozy environment for something so serious, seems to me, but that's what they're doing. Here it is.
My sister, Annie Farmer, will speak for me. She is a primary reason that I reported Epstein.
Now, this is the sister of one of the victims, I believe.
After they assaulted us in 2 different locations and held me captive at Wexner's estate, while Maxwell also stole photos.
That's just Ghislaine Maxwell, the one who's in prison.
Private art studies and twisted them into child sexual abuse materials, harming my sisters and myself. In 2006, the FBI demanded my testimony for a federal trial, promising justice, but failed again. For 30 years, I've fought not only sex traffickers, but a federal government that has enabled them, while that same government fully ignored teen safety and my many FOIA report requests. After 3 decades of failure, I am suing them for answers. Virginia Giuffre's heroism, speaking her truth, her humility, her bravery, and love ended my 14 years of fear and silence. She is the heart of this fight. Please take a moment of silence for her.
Virginia is the woman who committed suicide, unfortunately, last April.
And
one
I
of the
would just like to
victims who
say,
became almost the
speaking for
face of
myself
the
now,
case
how very
for
much
many
it
years.
means to see this show of solidarity today. After feeling so isolated and alone for so many years with this fight, it's incredible to see all of you standing here and to feel the support coming from elsewhere as well. As a public, since I've come out publicly in this case, I've received so many notes and messages from people who have been impacted by this story because of how much they relate to the struggles involved in this story. Unfortunately, that's because so many people are affected by these crimes. We have a huge, widespread issue with child sexual abuse, with sexual violence against women, with abuse of power in all forms that leads to all forms of trafficking. And so I truly believe when you're facing problems at this scale, it requires this type of force of coming together, creative solutions around not just the punishment of these very guilty perpetrators, but also education, so people know the signs and understand the signs and can recognize the things that I didn't recognize when I was being, lured into this world. So I'm so grateful for organizations that do this work. Thank you for World Without Exploitation for hosting this and for doing the very, very important work of education. And I just want to thank all of you. I think we all have a role to play in coming together to change these very challenging situations
Hello.
that we face and to solve these problems.
Hello.
Thank you.
They've got an early start, apparently. I'm not sure this is the live feed from the press conference. See who this guy is.
Hello, everyone.
Volume's not too
my
loud.
name is Sky Roberts, and I'm here today with my wife Amanda Roberts and my brother Daniel. We are proud and heartbroken.
I don't know. Can you hear that?
Just barely. It's really low.
Yeah, that's as high. I've got their volume as high as it goes, but yeah, I don't think that one's gonna. I don't think
Is
that.
it live on anywhere else?
Well, it hadn't actually started yet. I'm not real sure what this preliminary is all about here, but I've got C-SPAN ready to go, but they haven't cranked it up yet. It's not till 10:30, and it's 10:20 now. So
yeah.
Anyway, the thing that I found interesting is, for right now, is that there was a little bit new in those records that came out last night. That more records showing Trump on the flight logs for Epstein's plane, which we knew he flew in the plane, but we've got more records on that, and also some new records from Epstein's contact book. So we did learn a little bit last night with that 33,000 pages they released, most of which we'd already seen. But
it would be interesting. It would be interesting to know the dates and where they were going and why they were going there.
Yeah, that's what's in those records. I mean,
Yeah,
they're actual. What did they call them? Customs. Let's see here. It was Yeah, among the 33,000 pages released, this is last night's release. Fewer than 1,000 are new records, specifically flight logs from U.S. Customs and Border Protection tracking Epstein's jet. So presumably that has, and that's where Trump pops up again. These logs confirm that Donald Trump appears multiple times as a passenger on Epstein's private plane, mainly in the 90s, flying between Palm Beach, New York, and Washington, D.C. In addition, Trump's name is listed in Epstein's partially redacted black book, his contact book. Now, that's not the client list everybody talks about. That's just his regular contact. So, I mean, it just further confirms that they were good friends.
Right.
That's about all. Doesn't prove any crimes, but I mean, you know, we get what we get.
Yeah, it's, you know, there were legitimate reasons for several of these celebrities to be going to different places because Epstein really catered to them for his own notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
And that by itself is not a crime. It's like all of the charitable work in Africa that the Clintons did was related to hitching a ride on Epstein's plane.
Yeah.
But was there a stop up?
Yeah. And, you know, and I think one of the most, well, there's two things that come to mind is one is the manager of his casino in Atlantic City, who lately who went off the reservation later on. I think he wrote a book even, but tell all. But he said that Trump and Epstein weren't just acquaintances, that they were best friends in this period that these flight logs are talking about, the 1990s, that it was not a casual friendship, and and he told a story about them showing up late at night. I mean, early hours of the morning, like 1, 2 a.m. at the casino, making a big scene with a bunch of women. And the casino manager said, and this is a recent interview I saw of him, said that, you know, one of them he knew was underage because she was a pretty well-known tennis star, pro tennis player, who he knew was 17 years old. And she was there with them with some other women, and they were making a big stink, and the local police got called for some reason, and they showed up, and this manager had to handle the situation and convince the police there was nothing to see here and he would handle everything, and it all settled down. But that's the kind of friendship I had with Epstein. They were rolling around in the middle of the night at a casino with underage girls. Okay.
You know, it's like politics. Anytime you were around any of these politicians, you know, there were all sorts of shenanigans going on in the hotel bedrooms upstairs from wherever the dinner was being held.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, I had room keys thrown at me during that period that I tossed back. And trust me, the Republicans are worse than the Democrats for that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to see here. C-SPAN, still nothing. We'll see what MSNBC is doing. They're talking about. Oh, I think. Oh, they're talking about Chicago right now. But they'll get around to it. It's coming up.
MSNBC is starting to become almost unwatchable, and they've been my favorite channel for quite a while.
Oh, why is that?
Well, they're sort of flopping all over the place, trying to decide what they want to be.
Yeah, I feel for them because I don't know. I mean, they're without NBC and with an owner trying to sell them who can't find a buyer. that would leave you a little bit confused, I think, as an organization.
and they have some real talent, but they need a news person as well as their political talent, and they need an actual news show, which they haven't had in forever.
That's not a bad idea, actually. You know, yeah, I can see that. I mean, because I don't know, maybe bring back Brian Williams. I was sorry to see him disappear.
Right, because they've gone all opinion all the time. And there's no real, even on their kind of groupie shows where they have 4 or 5 people, there's no real opposing opinion. And like Jack keeps saying, 2 opinions are still not a fact.
Yeah.
They need a fact.
Well, I fear they're going to go the way of that. What was that? The liberal radio network that started for a while. That
Oh yeah.
Remember America something? I don't know what it was.
Right, and you can still watch them on Sling. You know, they're
they're still around.
People. Well, I should say, do you know about TuneIn? I'm still looking at it, all of the different stations they carry.
I got so many streaming things. I haven't tried any new ones, but I have seen that.
And Sling has a channel that they're all on that's kind of weird. But I'm not willing. I keep dipping into Sling because that's the only way I can get MSNBC live.
Oh, I see.
And that's $45 a month, and it's not worth it for what amounts to 2 channels.
Well, I just wonder what is going to become of, like Joe Scarborough. I just going forward, whatever this channel is becoming, MSNBC is becoming, I don't see how they can afford Joe Scarborough and people like that. I mean, for what NBC used to pay them.
And Joe's getting worse with all the bombast and sports stuff and sort of wandering all over the universe. And that's what I said about getting kind of unwatchable. Yeah.
And they're still on Chicago. Let me see if I'm still waiting on, C-SPAN frustrates me so much. Wait a second, I just saw the play button. Maybe they've started.
C-SPAN's another one I have a hard time tuning in.
Well, it's so hard to find to know when and where they're going to carry stuff, Okay. All right, all right, C-SPAN's got it up. Let me get it on. Okay, here we go. Share screen. All right. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. And there's about 5 different clicks to do this. All right, here we are. There. Now, is that C-SPAN? I think that's C-SPAN. Whoop.
No.
Hey, Carolyn. We're just pulling in C-SPAN here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. And Jamie's here as well.
Yeah. Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
I don't see Jamie though.
No, I'm being invisible. I'm on my Kindle.
Okay.
She's incognito today.
Okay.
She heard.
Yeah, when I'm on the Kindle, it really, really looks bad.
Oh.
But y'all talking about it. I'm trying to figure out how to get this live stream on here.
Oh, okay.
Let me
now,
see
who's there? I see.
That's what
Marjorie.
I'm trying to. Okay, I'm trying to get the screen. All right. They haven't quite started yet. Let me get the volume on. All right.
Is that MTG?
I'm telling you.
Yeah, there's MTG right there, front and center. Here she goes. Launch. Oh, she backed away from the podium. Oh, darn. We almost got full crazy. We almost had full crazy launch. All right, now I'm going to. All right, now we're in business. Now we're in business. And control.
Good morning, everybody.
There's Kana, the Democrat from California.
Right.
Please, if we could, just out of respect for particularly the survivors who are going to speak, if we could have some silence. And if folks could just please calm down. You can.
That's as high as I can get the volume. Is that volume good enough?
That the victims and survivors are going to be heard today. I want to begin by thanking Brittany Henderson and Brad Edwards for their tireless work in the pursuit of justice. And I want to thank Sarah Drury on my team.
Is that volume okay? Can you hear
Yes,
that?
Yes, I can hear him.
Survivors who are here today, whose courage and strength have brought us to this moment. I want to thank my co-lead, Congressman Thomas Massey, and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene for standing with survivors here today. Today, as you can see, we're united in restoring trust in government. We're here not as partisans, we're here as patriots. We begin the work of bringing this country together, progressives, independents, moderates, and yes, MAGA supporters, to demand truth and justice. A nation that allows rich and powerful men to traffic and abuse young
Well, while he's
girls
doing that,
without consequence
this Transparency
that has
Act
lost
that he's talking
its moral
about,
and spiritual
one issue I wanted to ask you about, Carolyn,
Americans are
that
asking a
I
very
found kind of
simple question.
interesting is
How is it possible
Speaker Johnson, who's trying to prevent a vote on this bill that he's talking about, this Transparency Act, would require the DOJ to release all the files, all the Epstein files and records. And Speaker Johnson is opposing it because he says they don't protect the victim's privacy. So here's the issue, Carolyn, with your background in the Department of Justice, is even if Congress were to pass this, and it's problematic whether it actually passes, but if they were to order the DOJ to release these records, there are other laws, correct, that would protect the victim's privacy, so it wouldn't have to be in this bill, as Speaker Johnson is complaining about.
Talking to the survivors.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Can the DOJ, if they're ordered to release these records, still say, well, these other records we can't release because they violate the victim's privacy? And the reason that's important is that's the attack that Speaker Johnson is making on this bill to try and stop it on Trump's behalf, is because this bill doesn't specifically say, well, you release everything except anything that violates the privacy of the victim.
The Crime Victims' Rights Bill, which is was also in that one, I think would offer some protection. But that's also problematic. But just general privacy, and
joining us today, Congressman Massey.
I would hope that the Department of Justice would appeal any, or go to court on it. I do not believe a court would order the Department of Justice to turn over the records. I just don't. I am very opposed to that idea. And, the Congress has no business telling the Department of Justice how to handle their business. And they could, on any case they wanted to, they could just pass a bill and say, give us all the information. So I can't imagine that a court would order them to do that.
Yeah. And the thing about this bill is it's not a subpoena. This is like a whole new thing.
Yeah, which is stupid. I mean, that's just stupid. I mean, how does Congress decide that they can order the Department of Justice to do it by passing this bill. I mean, that just to me it makes no sense, and it's showboating. The Congress is just showboating and playing to the crowd. But there's no way that the judiciary would allow Congress to go digging in all of the records of the executive branch, or including the Department, especially the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
It's
shameful.
Because I mean, your position makes sense, but it's kind of the it's kind of the argument Trump wants made here.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate to say that I agree with him, but I do. And this I do, because there is a lot of information in the files of all of the Department of Justice cases that impact people's privacy rights. And just because Congress decides that they want to see it, or that the public wants to see it, doesn't mean they get to. Those people have rights. The people whose names are in some of those files. So, my position is that if there is evidence in any of those, what they call the Epstein Files, if there is evidence that could prove someone participated in those criminal activities, they should be prosecuted. But you don't go spreading around files and passing it out that are mere allegations. That's inappropriate.
Yeah, and that's pretty basic policy for DOJ. I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, from the political point of view, that's a good argument. But that argument, the argument you're making, I'm not actually hearing from Trump supporters on the House. They're mostly focused on
What's funny is that Congress wants to take unilateral action and Trump wants to make laws. It's like they've changed places.
Yeah.
Oh, here's Marjorie. Oh, we got to get Marjorie in here. Let's see. Oh, where's her volume? Oh, here she is.
Bring us all together. It's grieved me to watch the arguments and debates take place among my colleagues and even the administration. I think this is something that was worth fighting for. You see, the women behind me are going to tell you stories that you've never heard before. These are unimaginable horrors that they've lived with for their entire lives since they were very, very young. But these are also similar stories that many children, teenagers, women, and even men are enduring nightmares right now as we speak. You see, these women have been fighting since the 1990s. I heard one woman tell us yesterday since 1996. And they have carried with them shame. But I want to tell you something. The shame does not fall on these brave, courageous women. The shame falls on every single person that coldly turned a blind eye to their abuse. The shame falls on every single person that enabled it. The shame falls on every single person that took money to continue it. And the shame falls on the people in power over the past several decades that protected the monster, Jeffrey Epstein, and his cabal that continued a nightmare. Those people deserve the shame. And today we are coming forward and we are going to fight like hell for these women, because we have to fight like hell for those that are enduring sexual abuse and are living in a prison of shame. Anyone that is being abused, it is not your fault. You should live with no guilt or fear or shame. All of the fault belongs to the evil people that do these things to the innocent. This is the most important fight we can wage here in Congress, is fighting for innocent people that never receive justice. And the women behind me have never received justice. And do you want to know why? It's because Jeffrey Epstein somehow was able to walk among the most rich, powerful people, not only in America, but foreign
Yeah, I'm just
countries.
fascinated the position she's taking. I mean, this is the only case I've seen where she is really square against Trump.
The truth needs to
I've
come
never
out.
seen her do that.
And the government,
And she's actually making sense.
the cases that are sealed hold the truth.
Careful.
Jeffrey Epstein's estate.
Now we've got Carolyn on record agreeing with Trump, and Jamie on record agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. The world is upside down.
Innocent child, teenager, woman, and man that is being held captive and abused.
But and then there's the whole other angle that I did a video on this last week, but
and I want to thank
there's a deal that could be made here, and she's a perfect example, and so is Massey. The deal Trump could make is I'll trade Ukraine for Epstein because she is one of the biggest opponents of Ukraine aid and a real sympathizer to Putin, and so is Massey. And you know, that's a deal that I wouldn't be surprised if it hadn't occurred to them. You know, if they believe just as strongly about not supporting Ukraine as they do supporting these victims. I don't know.
And I'm just wondering how much money is behind all of these women that are possibly in a position to just go ahead and name names.
I now would like to.
Yeah.
You know, that would bring up some really big legal cases.
They haven't had their voice heard. The victims haven't been heard.
Huh.
They haven't just been on this in the last few months.
While they're still yapping, Carolyn, I wanted to get into that thing that you brought up that I did not realize. Explain that business of how, as part of his plea deal, he agreed to plead guilty to solicitation, which implied that the victims were prostitutes. Go through that scenario because I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, what he pled to was solicitation of prostitution, which is mind-boggling that they suggested that those girls who were children were prostitutes. I think that law has been repealed. I don't think it is still something that Florida has, but it's very offensive that they had that charge and that they allowed him to plead to that, which almost makes it sound as though he was the victim because he was being soliciting. So.
And we're talking about girls who were like 14. I mean, there was one that I played earlier, a clip from this morning on Good Morning America, a girl that was, when she was abused, she was 14 years old. And so they're sitting there saying she was a prostitute. I mean,
which is extremely offensive.
Yeah. And then there's a case that's still ongoing with this Courtney Wild, who was one of the victims, and she's been in court trying to overturn his plea deal. And of course, what happened there was when he killed himself or got killed or whatever happened, when he died, that went away. The courts threw her out. But then the 11th Circuit in Atlanta, the Federal Appeals Court agreed to a hearing on it in bank, and they had that hearing last month, and we're waiting on that decision. So, do you think that where is that case headed? Anywhere?
I mean, I think nowhere, because I do not think they will reverse it. It's the 11th Circuit reversed what the district court had done, which was years ago. The district court said that the U.S. Attorney's Office had violated the Crime Victim Rights Act. The 11th Circuit said no, and said that the act did not come into play until there were actually charges filed. And of course, there were never any charges filed in federal court. So the 11th Circuit now has heard it en banc, which just means that all of the judges on the court heard it, not just the panel of three. I don't think that they will change it for one reason, because they have an easy out. What would the remedy be if you say, okay, we'll reverse it? You can't prosecute a dead person.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no remedy at this point. No.
Carolyn, is there any possibility of a civil case? Does he have any estate that they could access?
They filed civil cases against Epstein long time ago, and they did get money recoveries. I don't think they'd have a civil case against the U.S. Attorney's Office. No, I mean they wouldn't get any money from the Department of Justice for it.
But is there a possibility of a group action of some sort? Is there any estate left to Epstein that these women as a group could get?
Well, they've already done that. They individually had rights to file civil cases against him long time ago, and many of them did. But he played no role in the violation of the Victims Act. You know, that was if there was a violation, that was done by the U.S. Attorney's Office. But the 11th Circuit has said that there was no violation. So, the Crime Victims Act gives the victims rights to participate, to appear at any hearing, any court hearing, but there were never any charges filed against Epstein in federal court in Florida, and so there was never any case, never any federal case. So, and the 11th Circuit said,
well, I think we have one of the
the
victims finally. I think this is one of the victims finally.
Congressman Massey and Kana for their role in putting together this very, very important bill. Every day of this journey toward healing has come at a profound cost to my mental health. But I am here. I chose to come because this bill really matters. I speak today not only in service of my own recovery from trauma inflicted by Maxwell and Epstein, but to honor the lives, the courage and sacrifices of Virginia Giuffre, Caroline Andriano, and others who could not continue. Their voices mattered. Their stories must not be forgotten.
Virginia Giuffre is the one who committed suicide last April.
Equal opportunity and equal consequence for all. Consequences are not about punishment alone. They exist to deter future harm, to protect vulnerable, and to set a standard of justice. If Ghislaine Maxwell were pardoned, it would undermine all the sacrifices I made to testify and make mockery of mine and all survivors' suffering. That is why the Epstein Files Transparency Act is so essential. It requires the Department of Justice release all the records related to Epstein and Maxwell investigations, flight logs, immunity deals, internal communications, and even the records surrounding Epstein's detention and death. And crucially, it forbids withholding documents simply because of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. This is about ending secrecy wherever abuse of power takes root. But transparency alone is not enough. Survivors need protection, resources, and legal support. If this Congress is serious about justice, then let this moment also affirm your commitment to provide victims with the legal aid they need to confront abusers, to navigate complex systems, and to reclaim their power.
You know, she raised something I hadn't thought about. Is this puts a lot more pressure on Trump not to pardon Maxwell. She just brought that up, which I hadn't connected that dot to this event so much, but hearing from all these victims of her makes it a whole lot harder for him to pardon him, which he clearly is on a path to do, if you ask me.
Transparency must be matched by support, or else too many victims will remain silent out of fear and lack of access. The statistics demand action. Nearly 1 in 5 women in America will experience rape or attempted rape in her lifetime. Every 74 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that person is a child. These are not numbers, they are people. They are your daughters, your sons, your constituents, your friends. Statistically, 1 in 5 of your families will face this nightmare. The days of sweeping this under the rug are over. We, the survivors, say no more. I want to help create a world where survivors of sexual abuse and abuse of power can come forward safely. And I ask Congress to join me in that effort, not only by passing this bill, but by ensuring that those who step forward have legal support to face their abusers and see justice done. When Judge Berman gave Epstein survivors the chance to finally speak, the world listened. After so many years, survivors were heard. That moment was historic. And so is this moment.
You know, Carolyn, something else worth going back to that is so amazing is that when they made the deal with Epstein for lesser charges and practically no real punishment, they didn't tell the victims anything about it, right? They weren't told anything when that was done.
I don't know what the state of Florida did. The U.S. Attorney's Office did not tell them what was going on. No, they should have, even if the crime victims law did not apply, they still should have told them what was going on. Why they didn't, there was a OPR report on it, which I have read, but it's quite long. And
Office of Professional Regulation and
Responsibility. And Acosta was criticized, and he was found.
Yeah, that was this is our first mention that our old friend Acosta, which we got started talking about him weeks ago.
Yeah.
Was the U.S. attorney down there who made this sweetheart deal with Epstein we're talking about, and
He
later ended up on Trump's cabinet.
Right.
Jim, right? Jim Acosta?
Jim, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So here's another one. Let's see who this one is.
And I was 16 years old when I was flown to New Mexico to spend a weekend with Epstein and Maxwell. That same year, 1996, my sister, Maria Farmer, reported what happened to me there, along with reporting her own assault at their hands and their theft of sensitive photos of herself, of me, and our younger sister that she had taken for her work as a figurative painter.
Wow.
I am now 46 years old. 30 years later, we still do not know why that report wasn't properly investigated, or why Epstein and his associates were allowed to harm hundreds, if not thousands, of other girls and young women. We have never been told whether those images were found when they discovered a large amount of child sexual abuse material on his property. As a psychologist, I understand that when the systems meant to protect us recreate the abuse cycle, the betrayal that occurs can be just as damaging as the original trauma. This happens when survivors of these crimes are not believed, when our well-being is not weighed as heavily as those who have more resources or more privilege, and when perpetrators of these crimes are given a platform rather than the survivors of them. For so many years, it felt like Epstein's criminal behavior was an open secret. Not only did many others participate in the abuse, it is clear that many were aware of his interest in girls and very young women and chose to look the other way because it benefited them to do so. They wanted access to his circle and his money. Their choice to align with his power left those of us who had been harmed by this man and his associates feeling very isolated. I could never have imagined being here today and this chorus of support that we have all received. I have been sent so many notes and messages from people with no direct connection to this case who've expressed their solidarity with us. And I believe that is because, in part, as Anushka explained so well, this is an extremely widespread issue. of child sexual abuse, of sexual exploitation, of sexual violence. This affects almost every family in some way. From my conversations with women in these last few days and from all of the support that we've received, it's very clear to me that we are not going away, we are not going to be quiet, and we are not going to give up. And I ask the American public to stand with us and not give up. At a time with record high levels of distrust in our institutions and a perception that there are two Americas, one for those with power and privilege and one for everyone else, passing this Epstein transparency bill is one important step that can be taken to prove to Americans that the government does not side with sexual perpetrators. A thorough public review of this information is an important step in preventing the type of systemic failures that have occurred in this case and harmed all of us. An important step towards healing for those involved. Thank you.
Carolyn, I think you've got to go pretty soon. So
yes,
while you're still here on the legal stuff, Acosta, who we just mentioned, Jim Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney in Miami when the Epstein deal was made, he approved the deal, and then later got in Trump's cabinet. I've got a video I'll play a little later on the background on him, but they're calling him to testify at the House Oversight Committee. What do you, and this is a committee that's very Trump aligned. There'll be Democrats on that committee who are gonna make hay, but where do you see that going? I mean, what are the outstanding issues with him and that deal that was made with Epstein going back?
I would guess just to beat up on him. I mean, yeah, I don't know they can do that much more to him. He's already been, the Department of Justice, the OPR already said that he I think exercised poor judgment. So he's already been smacked around, appropriately so. I don't know what else they can do.
Yeah.
Just, box him in the ears some more.
And what, as a former federal prosecutor yourself, what was the major failings in that deal with Epstein? What was overlooked? I mean, what makes that such a stinky deal that compared to what you've experienced?
They did not thoroughly investigate what was before them, and there was substantial evidence, and it should have been a federal case, not a state case. That's why the locals took it to the FBI. FBI had more resources to investigate it, could also charge the crimes that occurred elsewhere. So it was more appropriately a federal case. My opinion is that Acosta was overrun by the attorneys that Epstein had. Epstein had very powerful attorneys.
Yeah.
And I think they just ran right over Acosta, and he just kowtowed to them. That's my personal opinion.
And he got a nice little reward with a cabinet position.
Yeah.
We can argue about whether there's a connection, but sure seems like it.
Yeah, he was, there are a lot of, in the OPR report, there was a lot about the communications between Epstein's lawyers, and he had a bunch of them.
Yeah, I bet.
And a lot about the communications with Acosta and with the other people in the U.S. Attorney's Office. And it was truly a hardcore press by Epstein's attorneys. And they got what they wanted.
And finally, the other thing that we've discussed so much in the past that while you were abroad, got a few more twists and turns, is we got the transcripts of the interview that Maxwell did with the Trump's personal lawyer and DOJ, now Assistant Attorney General. What is it? Deputy Attorney General?
Yeah, it's generally called the DAG, Deputy
Yeah.
Attorney General.
Todd Blanche.
Who is the second in command, the second to the AG.
And I don't know if you got to see much of what came out of that transcript. I mean, the key thing I noticed that she said that the Trump supporters were all saying exonerated him was that she said she never saw him do anything, quote, her word was inappropriate. And of course, you can always say somebody convicted of sex trafficking might have a different definition of, of inappropriate as an average person.
Yeah. And just because she didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't occur.
It didn't happen, right? Yeah.
That's not something generally done with witnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just wasn't in the room.
Yeah. And so, that transcript, to me, that whole scenario is they have tried several efforts to make it look like they're being transparent. The last one being last night, this 33,000 pages that DOJ gave to the House Oversight that was released, only about 1,000 of which was anything new, and what was in that wasn't that new. Anyway, that was an effort at showing transparency. Then they asked the judge to release the grand jury transcripts. We went all over that before. That was to make it look like they're trying to be transparent. And then this whole Maxwell scenario where they interviewed her, one-sided interview. He didn't follow up on anything, that was significant really. And then they released that transcript. These are all efforts to look transparent while sitting on the files themselves that Trump could release with one, not even a signature, just a phone call to Pam Bondi.
But as I have said, I am opposed to doing that simply because if they want to pick and choose and see what's appropriate, then fine, have a panel to do that. But just releasing wholesale all of the files is just inappropriate to me.
Drill into that just a bit, because what is the public purpose of your position there in terms of people that get investigated and aren't charged can be smeared, without having to go to court and prove anything against them?
Right, and there is also a lot of what's called work product. As a prosecutor, I very often wrote down my opinions, my thoughts about something that would be in the files. It's inappropriate to turn over all of that wholesale. There may have been some question about somebody's credibility. That's often happens. There might be information about that in the files. It's inappropriate to spread that all over to everybody.
Well, now, what would be the path here? You kind of hinted at it. That is some sort of panel to look through these and decide what's appropriate or not appropriate.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate under any circumstances. But if there is going to be some release of the documents, there should be a review of everything that's in there, and not by Congress. There need to be prosecuted. The whole idea is just so foreign to me that you would just turn over all this stuff for the public to pour through and for Congress to make it. It's just inappropriate.
So noted.
Yeah. But I won't get very far with that argument, so I know that.
Well, no, it makes sense. It makes sense.
And my other point is I'm not really sure what anybody expects to gain from that. What would they gain by having all of those, whatever documents there are? I think that the public and Congress think so. There's some, bullets and there's something that, and there probably isn't. So
yeah, but there's something that has Trump determined, if not desperate, to keep these from being released. And the interesting thing is, they're not making the argument that you're making that makes the most sense, was that it's inappropriate to set a standard, a precedent for doing this for future, people who are investigated and never charged. I mean, they're not making that argument. It's the one that makes the most sense.
But I think that most people don't really care about my argument. So. As a former prosecutor, I think it's important. I think it's very important that there be some rights to those other people. They have rights too. And I would have. It was important to me when I was reviewing a case that I could be open with my colleagues or with agents in discussing the cases.
Yeah.
That may have been documented somewhere. I think you'd find that if you're going to have people pouring through everything that's done at a later date, you're not going to have a thorough investigation and consideration of all of the evidence and documenting it. So
it would be a chilling effect on
absolutely. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, that's the legal word.
Carolyn, is there anything that could be done at this date, as far as a statute of limitations or something, for a failure to investigate? You're talking about people that were investigating, but how about if they just didn't, if they just stuffed it in a drawer somewhere?
But what do you mean, an action against those people?
Yeah, if at this point in time, could you go back and say we need to see enough to know whether it was properly investigated in the first place? Are there other actions to be brought?
When you were talking about you were talking about the Office of Professional Responsibility,
that was done. Yeah, that has been.
Is that where they sort of did that, or
yes, they did. Yeah, and that was in like 2019 or so. Yeah, 2020 is when the report came out, and it's online. You can find it online. It's like 300 pages or so. They did thoroughly investigated and found that Acosta acted inappropriately.
But there was there was nothing done to him over it. I mean,
what can you do? I mean, what can you do? They said he was acted inappropriately. It's not a criminal offense.
I think what other people are saying is Epstein's dead, Maxwell's in jail, and nobody else is being punished for everything that was done to these women. Is there any way to go back and investigate the people that were never pursued?
Well, the statute of limitations may well prevent it.
That's what my question was.
But the other issue is if there were people who participated at the time, they should have been part of the original case. And I don't know what the evidence may have been, but if there was sufficient evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt that anybody else participated, that should have happened. Now, New York, Southern District of New York investigated that and charged Epstein. I would guess that they also looked to see if there was evidence against anybody else that they could prove. I believe they did a very thorough investigation when Epstein was indicted. I think that was in 2019. Had there been other people that they could had sufficient evidence against, I believe they would have charged them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean,
they charged Epstein and then Maxwell separately, but I believe that they would have had every reason to charge anybody else for whom there was sufficient evidence.
I guess what's bothering me is these women were not masturbating.
Well, I'm
There
not
were
sure.
other people involved.
Well,
It was
and if
it
they
was a
were,
group effort.
it was a group effort. And again, I believe that New York would have charged others if there was sufficient evidence against other people. They wouldn't have stopped with Epstein and Maxwell.
And I
Well,
guess
somebody stopped.
I mean, did the victims? I don't even know. Did the victims ever even name anyone else? I mean, well, Virginia Dufresne did name Prince. Which one of the princes was it?
Yeah, the Charles's brother.
Yeah, that guy.
Andrew.
But
Yeah,
who?
right,
But
Andrew. Randy.
And the right wingers are always talking about Bill Gates and Bill Clinton, but I don't think have any victims ever named them or anyone else.
Not that I have ever heard. No.
Right. Yeah. And that supposedly is, if they had in an investigation or something, that's supposedly what's in these files that everybody's talking about wanting to get released.
And Southern District of New York had those files. They had access to it. I do not believe that they would have ignored the evidence if there was sufficient evidence that to prove somebody else had participated.
Yeah.
Because an accusation is not a conviction.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they had to have sufficient evidence.
You're right.
You know, in order to bring charges against someone, the prosecutor needs to have believe that there is sufficient evidence to get to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. You don't do it on a mere allegation.
Right.
You have sufficient evidence to support that charge.
You know, the irony here is that you're persuading me that there is a strong rule of law argument here in protecting people who are investigated but never charged.
There absolutely is. It is a lot of power that a prosecutor has, and it needs to be exercised responsibly. And
the irony to me is that argument is a strong one, but it's not the one that the Trump people are making, largely because they can't make a rule of law argument because they don't believe in the rule of law.
Well, I think that the current Department of Justice leaders might well not want to make that argument because it would seem to be supporting possible wrongdoers. And I think that would be
and it would backfire on all of their immigration cases.
Yeah, it would. You're a good way to put it, Jamie. Yeah, it would be counter to their arguments in other matters.
Yeah. They're in a fix here. They are. They're in a fix. I mean, to get to the political aspect of it is it's all the supporters, the Trump supporters that they've told all these years, when we get in office, we'll get all this out. We'll prove that Bill Clinton was a pedophile and everything crazy they all believe. And then they get in office and don't do it. And that's where we are. That's why we're here, is they are the ones who went out and promised to their supporters they would release this stuff. And now they're caught not releasing it. And they're in this jam now.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn it. Okay. I'm
all right, thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
And then next time we'll talk about your trip to Europe. She just got back from Europe.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
so long.
Have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye.
And Jamie, I'm going to dip back into this if you want to stick around or not.
I'm going to depart. We need to have a good conversation about all of the legal ramifications when maybe more of the audience, your audience, is on to listen to us. So
yep,
you go listen to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna wind this up with a little more of the press conference and then a follow-up video, and we'll have this one put to rest.
Were you recording anything of the conversation between You and Carolyn?
Oh, yeah, we've been live on YouTube this whole time.
Oh, so there are people viewing us, huh?
Yeah, I haven't been over there to see what kind
What
of
commentary there was?
The one the other day we had about 150, about 160 watching. I just wish more people would join in, but that's okay if they just want to watch. That's all right.
But it would be interesting to see what they commented on when we were talking about these issues.
Yeah, and that's something I haven't mastered yet is monitoring the comments that are written, but I'll figure that out eventually. Anyway,
Okay, I will leave you to your own devices. You take care. Bye-bye.
For me, and for the many other women who have suffered for so long, for many reasons. First, we and the rest of the world need answers. Why was he so protected? And why didn't anyone ever care to stop him? It doesn't take a brain surgeon to know that if he is spending thousands of dollars a day paying high school girls he abuses and had a lot of access to cash. I learned through my attorneys in the JP Morgan class action case that there were years when his staff withdrew over $1 million in cash a year. Was that not a big enough red flag? There were wire transfers to other victims, and the government did not protect us. The banks did not protect us. So lift the curtain on these files and be transparent. Every single time a new conspiracy gets circulated in the media, whether he is still alive, what powerful person had him murdered, who was on the Epstein client list, and there are names going around on TikTok and Instagram, we, the survivors, are suffering severely. We take our kids to school and everyone is talking about it. We can't read the news or do anything without hearing crazy stories that are only able to live on because the government continues to hide the evidence and the truth. So people just make up stories. Those stories hurt. They hurt real people who have already been hurt. And we have lost so many Epstein victims to suicide, and maintaining the real truth in secrecy only allows for conspiracy theorists to tell lies that drives up our anxiety and fears and will continue to lead to more pain, more suffering, and honestly, more deaths of innocent victims. It's time you do is right by us. Unseal all the documents. We are requesting transparency, and I am requesting every congressman and woman that goes against this bill be outed. I want to know. Thank you.
We'll dip out of this now. We've been watching the press conference of Epstein survivors, and the next step in this story is what happens with the House GOP on the bill to direct DOJ to release records. And there are a handful of Republicans who want to do that. Trump's against them. He's got Speaker Johnson whipping them, as they say in Congress, to get in line and oppose release of the transcripts. So that's the next step in this story. We'll see what the testimony of these survivors, what impact that had. Meanwhile, we're going to go out with, in 48 seconds, I think it's about 52 seconds actually, why Ghislaine Maxwell matters in 48 seconds. She knows names, dates, and deals, the same secrets buried in the FBI's locked Jeffrey Epstein file. A file Trump promised to release until his own attorney general warned he's in it. She's serving 20 years for helping Jeffrey Epstein run his global sex trafficking network. Maxwell is one of the few people alive who could confirm exactly who was involved, how it worked, and who it protected. As one viewer of Trail Mix put it, he's going to pardon her. He's just going about it slowly and in phases so his cult has enough time to do the mental gymnastics required to be okay with it. And that's why Maxwell still matters.